All right. So, yeah, hopefully there isn't a whole of wait, let me test something out here. Okay. So, all right. Like any good story, I want to start off with just my own history in gaming. Shouldn't take long because I feel like everybody's story in gaming is a little bit similar, right? Our experiences in the past shape our opinions and the way we think today. And so for me, it started with my mom buying me a Nintendo way back in '85 when I was a kid, when I was very, very tiny. I was 5 years old. And she bought off the Home Shopping Club, basically. And I actually had the gray zapper, if anybody remembers that. I know I'm a dinosaur, but for whatever reason, the damn thing didn't work. And then when we got a new one, that's when we got the orange zapper. So that was pretty cool. So fast forwarding through all of that, playing the old Nintendo games. Most of the games I love were like role playing games, story based games, and then we go through the Super Nintendo era, and then eventually they came a shift, right? A fork in the road. So I made my notes here real quick. So the Super Nintendo came out August 23rd of 91. I was 11 years old. Now, I played all the best games for that system. It was definitely a golden age. Then eventually the PlayStation 1 came out. This was the first Sony system, of course, and that came out September 9th of 95. So at this point, I'm 15. The main reason why I even got a PlayStation 1 was this game I saw called Warhawk. It was like kind of like this flight simulator game. You can go first person or third person. It was when I saw it, I was walking through Green Acres Mall with my dad in basically Nassau County in New York, and I'm like, "Wow, what's this?" And back then, you were able to play the game a little bit, and I just couldn't put it down. And eventually, I begged and begged and begged, and my dad finally ended up buying it for me. And that was the main game that got me into Sony PlayStation. Even though at that time, if anybody remembers, the original launch titles for the PlayStation 1 was Warhawk, Twisted Metal, NFL Game Day, a game called Loaded. Many people don't remember that game. It was kinda like an isometric shooter. It was just mindless fun, but I think they came out with a second game, but I don't think the franchise, you know, took off. So, I played PlayStation 1. I did not get into Nintendo 64. And then eventually I ended up buying Sega Dreamcast at launch. Bought the Sega Dreamcast, great games. And then eventually I got into PlayStation 2 and the original Xbox, which came out November 15th, 2001. At that point, that was it for me. I've been Microsoft ever since then. So ever since the original Xbox in 2001, that's pretty much been my focus. And one of the things that I noticed at that time was, first of all, it wasn't Halo that got me into Xbox like most people. It was actually a game called Splinter Cell. Stan Fisher. It was one of my favorite stealth-based games. Of course, Michael Ironside providing the voice of Sam Fisher. He's iconic. Um, so that's what really got me. Now, when noticing the differences between the PlayStation 2 version and the Xbox version of Splinter Cell, it was staggering. I mean, I've seen entire like areas where it was the same location, but the Xbox version had so much more detail. In fact, they had like additional items, like in a corridor where it was just no windows. The Xbox version had a window, it had like other things in the background. So I was like, wow, that's what attracted me. And then so I started to favor my Xbox. Now, when the PlayStation 3 was set to come out, it was gonna be the most expensive console, and I knew just about everything about the system. I had several of my friends that were so, like, they just had to buy that. We used to call it a damn George Foreman grill, 'cause that's what the shit looked like to me. It looked like a giant size George Foreman grill, if anybody remember the original PlayStation 3. So, at that time, I believe it was the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and the Nintendo Wii. I think that that was the generation. So, leading up to the PlayStation 3's release, there was talks of Sony, making a new Warhawk. Now, as I said, Warhawk was the main game that got me on board being a Sony fan. So, naturally, I was excited to play Warhawk, a new generation, just to see what kind of graphical enhancements that the game would make. Unfortunately, for those that are aware of the PlayStation 3, Warhawk became a live service game. They completely scrapped, I think, the entire single player campaign. I think it was just some sort of a aerial arena shooter. At that point, I lost all interest, and then at that time, Kaz Farai, the creator of the PlayStation and a very high up, member of the corporate brass, he actually went on record and said that the PlayStation 3 is the least expensive Blu-ray player that just so happens to play video games. When I heard and read that, and that's a real quote, you can actually look that up on Google. When I heard that, that turned me off from the PlayStation 3 because I realized Sony's goal at that time was just to push their Blu-ray technology. That's it. And the guy didn't lie. The PlayStation 3 was just a marketing campaign for Blu-ray technology. As he said, that just so happened to also play video games. That just turned me off. And so I was really contemplating buying a PS3, but once I started to hear things like that, I just stayed on Microsoft's side. And but as we move further ahead, um, you know, certain games started to come to prominence. Obviously we had Halo, Splinter Cell was doing very well, Metal Gear, God of War, right? There was a lot of gaming franchises that that were just amazing. That was just you couldn't you could not deny the impact that they have today, but being able to experience that, when I first saw it come out was a treat because people in my age bracket, we didn't really know what was, what was to come. We didn't know, and so it was a good time, and I'll never forget those days. Now that brings me to what we have nowadays. The gaming market, the gaming landscape is basically turned to this woke nightmare filled with DEI and a lot of the franchises that I grew up loving has basically been destroyed. Halo has been destroyed. Um, I think God of War is still fine, even though they had their controversy. But when I look at, say, like Nintendo, for instance, Nintendo, I have absolutely no interest in them. I It's not so much Nintendo gone woke because they really haven't in terms of what they're offering, not to my knowledge, but it was really Nintendo continues to put out really weak, weak hardware. Um, it's like Nintendo, in my opinion, has no excuse. Nintendo is a company that, for the longest time, they actually make the most revenue off of their consoles. unlike Sony and Microsoft, the 2 of them, they outsource a lot of their console, they have to pay so much money to different companies because these companies provide, Sony and Microsoft certain components that both Sony and Microsoft has to pay for. So for every console that's sold by, Sony, for instance, I think at the time of PlayStation 4, if I'm not mistaken, I think Sony was making about $17 for every system that was sold. Microsoft Xbox, I would like was it the Xbox One? Yes, Xbox One. Xbox One was making about $22 per system sold, and a lot of people didn't know this. So, Nintendo, on the other hand, Nintendo, contrary to what most people knew, for every system Nintendo sold, they reaped a vast majority of the profit because a lot of what they were doing was in-house. So, and if you remember, Nintendo had several different, campaigns. The most recent successful one I remember was Pokemon Go, if anybody remembers that. Nintendo made so much money off of that. They were making money hand over fist, okay? And when you look at what they offered console-wise from the Nintendo Switch. No, the Wii, and then they went to the Wii U. There really wasn't much of a significant difference. And then I believe that's when they went from the Wii U to the Switch, if I'm not mistaken. I might be off, but either way, the hardware that Nintendo continuously pushes out to their market, to their customer fan base, I feel they just been getting away with murder for years. Now, from a business standpoint, I can't hate on them, right? Because even when you're doing this, when you're working the stock market, the whole point is to buy low and sell high. And but the gamer in me, I feel sorry for Nintendo fans consistently getting very weak consoles that when when you have Sony and Microsoft put out their consoles, Nintendo fans may want, they may want to play a game that's on Sony and Microsoft, and then once it's ported over to a Nintendo console, it's absolute trash. I mean, we've seen this many times. So, and not to mention that Nintendo's accessories are far overpriced. Oh my god, I can't tell you the last time I've actually seen any kind of meaningful sale on anything Nintendo. Anything. Like, some of their oldest games are still retailing for damn near full price. It's ridiculous. They have very draconian, very anti-consumer, policies. Um, Sony is a little bit better within that regard, but, me being a Microsoft guy and looking at Sony and Nintendo, out of the 3, Microsoft, for me, has always been number 1 when it comes to at least giving the consumer the best value. Now, I want to share, yeah, I mean, the PlayStation controller is insane. While I've never used it, um, but it is insane how, the accessories cost so much. And here's a fun fact for people that may not be aware. These companies do not make money off of the hardware. They make money off of the gaming subscriptions and the accessories. That's what they do. So think of it like this: when you buy a Nintendo system, an Xbox, or a PlayStation, what you're doing is you're buying into the ecosystem. Think like Apple, right? Apple, if you have an Apple whatever product, you can only really use Apple product, like Apple accessories. You have to bring it to an Apple mechanic or technician. So they keep you in that ecosystem. And I have a feeling, just to kind of move ahead of what I'm talking about, I have a feeling this is what Microsoft was looking to do. But I don't want to get too ahead of myself here. So, understanding this at a very early age, I came to realize, all right, I don't like how Nintendo is doing things. It's very anti-consumer, but they are making money. And at the end of the day, Nintendo likes to I don't think they do it purposely, but it's almost like people look at Nintendo as like this struggling company, you know, I don't know how to really put it, like, kinda like, almost we feel sorry for them because all they have is Mario, Link, and Donkey Kong, right? They're first party games, but Nintendo has a shit ton of money, and I can tell you 100% that if Nintendo really wanted to create hardware that is at least capable, they could do it. And I just can't rock with Nintendo for that reason. Nintendo could be doing more for their customers, and they choose not to. And then even from a competitive standpoint, me being a former competitive player in Tekken, looking at how they have treated the Smash Brothers community is ridiculous. Um, the Smash Brothers community, for those that don't know, Super Smash Brothers was a very popular game on Nintendo, and it's very competitive. Even though to me it's a party game, I don't consider it a fighting game, but it's very competitive, and the community is very strong. And Nintendo, they could have easily organized their own Smash Brothers events, but they don't. They make it very hard for tournament organizers to organize any sort of anything revolving around Super Smash Brothers. So ultimately, I'm not a fan of Nintendo. When I was a kid growing up, when my mom bought me my first Nintendo at 5 years old, I'll never forget it. But now Nintendo to me, I just feel they're just they're just very very scummy in my opinion. They whore out the same bullshit. They rarely, if ever, have any meaningful sales. Their accessories are way overpriced, and their consoles are absolute shit. And I understand that there might be some Nintendo fans that might watch this stream or watch the video later and might hate on me, but I'm just calling it like I see it. And as far as I can say, it's actually the truth. So if I wish to now shift gears to RJ, you're 100% correct, but I don't want to get too sidetracked with the chat. So forgive me, but I will get to you guys. But I feel that as old as I am, I'm 44,000 years old, and I've basically seen everything that has happened in this industry. I was a former competitive player. I was a very active member in Empire Arcadia. It was kind of like this gaming group that we had, in the fighting game related, all of the top fighting game players, Justin Wong, Sanford Kelly, IFC Yipes, every single fighting game player you can think of, for the most part, was a part of our organization at one point. And so I definitely have that experience. So seeing everything, seeing consoles come and go, fighting games come and go, the rise of DEI, believe me, I'm like a treasure trove of knowledge that, I just like, you know what? Let me hop on stream. Let me yap. Let me talk my shit and just kind of share what I know. And so I appreciate anybody that tunes in, even if you're on for like 5 minutes. People got shit to do. I understand that. But this thing with Sony. Now, I had a PlayStation 2. I skipped PS3 for the reasons I said very much early on that, it was basically marketed as a cheaper Blu-ray player. I wasn't feeling that. PS4, I wasn't really feeling. PS5. So at this point, I'm really not into Sony anymore. But I'm very much up on the news. And when I look at the PlayStation 5, and I made a video about this a long time ago, a couple of months ago on my channel, talking about when this was before the PS5 Pro came out, right? And I realized that the PS5 Pro was nothing more than a gimmick at best. It was a gimmick. And let me tell you, I want to explain, and I've always wanted to say this in a video, but I wasn't sure how to organize this in a video-like way. So I'm just gonna do this shit raw. Many people did not understand the true purpose behind the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X, the mid-gen, what do they call that shit? Anyway, whatever they called it at that time. They had a fancy name for it. The main reason why Sony and Microsoft did mid-generation consoles was because at the time, the uh, the installed base of 4K televisions in the United States was very low. I remember a long time ago, it might have been 2014, 2015 or so, and I came across an article, and it showed that the across the United States, 4K televisions, many people in the United States didn't have one. If you are aware, or maybe you're not, the first thing on the scene was plasma TVs. And after plasma, you had LCD, and then after LCD, you had LED, and so it went on from there. But at that time, there wasn't many people that owned a 4K TV. Now, Microsoft and Sony, and just console makers in general, best believe they have relationships with television manufacturers. Best believe. A lot of people are not aware of this. So it's kind of like this. It's like Venom, right? You got Eddie Brock and you got Venom. They're a symbiotic relationship. So now 4K and 60 frames per second was the realm of PC gamers, right? Because PC monitors were higher in refresh rates and things of that nature. So most PC players playing at 4K 60 was like, that was whatever to them. A lot of them were playing at 120, right? So Sony and Microsoft wanted a bit of that market. But instead of committing 100% to create consoles that would take full advantage of 4K technology, what would be the point of putting out a system like that if you can't even own or you don't own a 4K TV? It'd be a waste of money. So that's the reason why Sony and Microsoft decided to create the mid-gen update. It wasn't really to make sales like that. It was really to get console players like myself a taste of what it's like to see video games 4K. And I think that they did a good job. This is the reason why the One X and the PS4 Pro were not that powerful. They really weren't when you really think about it. They weren't really that powerful. And so it was basically a way to get people interested in 4K that were console players to run out and buy a 4K TV, which helped the 4K television manufacturers. And then now, once the level of the installed base of 4K TVs rose across the United States, now Sony and Microsoft drops their full-fledged 4K consoles. That's really why this happened. So now when I saw Sony trying to do this again with the PS5 Pro, I kind of squinted my eyes like, I know what you guys are doing, but they're probably counting on many other, maybe even you, not realizing. I knew 100% that this was nothing more than a cash grab for Sony because the One X and the PS4 Pro had a legitimate purpose. That purpose was to bring console players and just regular everyday average homeowners to adopt 4K televisions. That was the mission, and they succeeded. That was the mission. So the PS5 Pro, why are you getting a PS5 Pro? Especially in the video that I had made on my channel. I think I made one or two of those videos. And I saw an article that said that I believe it was Elden Ring. I think it was Elden Ring, that the PS5 Pro could not run Elden Ring at 4K 60 in quality mode. So when I read that, I was like, okay, I laughed. I laughed my ass off. And then eventually I saw, if you're not subscribed, Digital Foundry, very good channel. They put the PS5 Pro through through their tests. And the PS5 Pro, while it did offer some enhancements, but for the price of $700, no. And it's and then if you wanted, I think the disc tray and the stand to stand the system up, I think it was like upwards of $800 to $900. And then knowing full well Sony is going to come out with a PlayStation 6. So what's gonna happen with those people that bought a PS5 Pro? What, you're gonna expect those people to turn right back around and buy a PS6? Come on. But there's a lot of people that just don't know. There's a lot of people that are just unaware of these things. And you may also have people that are just they just got money to throw away like that. Me, I don't have money like that. I'm poor, you know what I'm saying? So I don't have money like that. But when I saw that, I was like, okay. And then let me tell you something else about Sony that a lot of the Sony fanboys uh, won't want to admit to. If it was not for Microsoft, there would be no such thing as cross consoles. There would be no such thing. That is an absolute it amazes me that for all of the bad mouthing that people do to Microsoft, to Xbox, they either are ignorant to this fact or they don't want to give proper credit. Sony wanted no part of cross. Sony wanted no part of the Game Pass model. Sony wanted no part of releasing their first party games on PC. Sony did not believe that a subscription service like a Game Pass would be viable, would be successful, and would actually benefit the developer. Sony didn't believe in any of that shit. But what did Sony do? Sony, in their infinite wisdom, and this is full sarcasm, of course, they looked at what Microsoft did. They saw the success, even if the gamers didn't see it. So you have to understand, gaming is a business. So a lot of these guys, they look at it very differently than maybe you do, right? For those that don't understand how business works, no offense. Sony saw, okay, this seems to be working. And little by little, Sony started walking back a lot of the bullshit that they were saying. I remember, if I'm not mistaken, Horizon Zero Dawn was, I think, the first Sony first party game to be released on PC, if I'm not mistaken. If it wasn't the first, it was definitely one of the major titles. And when I saw that happen, I was like, "Oh, look at Sony. Okay, look at them kinda wising up and trying to X copy what Microsoft is doing." And, you know, and it didn't surprise me because if you know your history, which is part of the reason why I'm even doing this live stream, a lot of people fail to realize that, when the Xbox One first came out, Sony with their PS4, yes, the PS4, they 100% did Microsoft dirty. They did Microsoft they did Microsoft dirty during that. Oh my god. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was the 2013 E3. Microsoft held their conference first. I remember historically, Microsoft usually always went first, and then Sony went later on in the evening. And I remember when Microsoft announced its price of $499 for the console. It had the Kinect. You know, everybody loved the Kinect, right? You know, some people loved it, some people hated it. I actually felt Microsoft didn't do the right thing with the Kinect. But then again, at that time, Phil Spencer was not in the picture at that point. A lot of people don't realize it was another idiot that was running Microsoft Xbox, a guy named Don Matrick. That guy was a complete fuck up. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So this is so exciting, kind of telling people that the actual real fundamental facts about what happened with Microsoft. So you're hearing it right here. So during that conference, um, Sony had planned to release their own Kinect-like device called the Sony iToy. A lot of people don't know this. Oh, the camera keeps moving because I think I have my AI tracking on. Okay, hold on. Let me turn this off real quick. Hold on. Once I hold up my hand, it should blink. Hold on, maybe it's the right hand. Hold up. Oh my god, this thing is like really messing me up. This thing is really annoying. All right, let me see if I can kind of. Wow, this thing really doesn't. Because usually with this, as soon as I hold my hand up, the green light should be blinking, but it's not. Anyway, fuck it, whatever. I'll just deal with it. So, where was I? So yeah, so Sony, after seeing the backlash that Microsoft had with the price, also with the Kinect and the DRM. A lot of people didn't really fail to realize this also. Remember, Sony came out with this ad where if you want to trade a game on the PlayStation 4, they just handed it to somebody. That's what Sony did during that. It was kind of like a cool little marketing thing at the time. So what ends up happening is Sony held their conference for the PS4 and they ended up walking back many of the things that they were originally going to do, but they did not let retailers know because that would have tipped off Microsoft. So what ended up happening is Sony did not include the Sony iToy with the PlayStation 4, and Sony reduced the price of the PS4 by $100. So if you remember, Xbox was 499, and I believe the PlayStation 4 was 399. Now, here's the deal. Fundamentally, and technically, the PS4 was the more powerful console, but the Xbox One was, I believe, a little bit faster. It was a very interesting dynamic. So and another thing is, Sony released the PlayStation 4 in 55 territories, and the Xbox One released in 13. Let me say that again. Sony released the PS4 in 55 territories, 55 markets, and the Xbox One was released in 13. So I already knew that the so-called console wars, that was already dead. The console wars ended toward the latter part. of the Xbox 360 era. That was with the PlayStation 3. That's when the console wars ended. But you know who kept the console wars going? Sony fanboys and the so-called gaming journalists of GameSpot, IGN, Kotaku, where just about every journalist was comparing games, or more specifically, comparing systems sold and saying, "Oh, the PlayStation is outselling Xbox. Xbox is this." The only people that cared about that were the Sony fanboys, the PC enthusiasts, and the so-called gaming journalists. Those are the people that cared about the systems sold by Sony. You know who didn't care about that? Microsoft. And let me tell you why. And this is a story you're not going to hear anywhere else. I guarantee there is no YouTube content creator that will tell you this shit. And if you do find one, you link them to me because I want to see it. The main reason why Microsoft decided to just completely abandon this whole console war thing was because during the Xbox 360 era, the Xbox 360, you have to understand, was 100% marketed as a Japanese console. That is a fact that many people are not aware of. If you look at the design of the Xbox 360, it was an off-white color. It was a console that stood up vertically, where you could do that. And the reason for that is because over in Japan and in those Asian markets, people's entertainment system setup was much smaller than somewhere like us in America. And most people they were very minimalist. And also, if you contrast the Xbox One to the 360, the Xbox One was a big, huge VCR looking console, and it was built to last because it had vents everywhere, and it was just built to last. Microsoft wanted so desperately to appeal to the Asian territories. They really did, because with the original Xbox One, the criticism was all Microsoft had was first person shooters. They had no Japanese presence. And that was the criticism. So when they came out with the 360, Microsoft wanted to create that system to cater more to the Japanese market. But unfortunately, in making the console smaller and also giving it less vents, it then suffered from overheating problems. And this is how you have the Microsoft, the red ring of death. So that's what ended up happening with there. And all of the things that Microsoft was trying to do in trying to cater to the Japanese market by reaching out to Japanese developers and publishers to get Japanese art role-playing games, uh, games like Lost Odyssey, which was made by the creator of the Final Fantasy franchise, games like Blue Dragon. A lot of the role-playing games from the Xbox 360 era was made with the intent to appeal to the Japanese market. So once Microsoft started to see during that whole console generation that the Asian market was just not they were not being moved. They didn't really care about the 360. When it came time to make the Xbox One, Microsoft listed the Asian territories as a tier 2 territory. That is something that many people just don't know. Microsoft focused primarily on the United States market and the European markets. And also with the whole the Kinect sensor, at the time of launch, Microsoft was only able to launch it in 13 territories. So from that moment on, the console wars died because from the very beginning of that generation, which was the 8th generation. The 8th generation, Sony was already going to outsell the Xbox One 3 to 1, maybe 4 to 1, and Microsoft already accepted that. And so now when, they got rid of Don Matrick from Microsoft because he was a complete idiot, and they brought in Phil Spencer had the vision, of what we have today, which is Game Pass. And Microsoft basically, Game Pass is like the Netflix of gaming. So if you have a Netflix subscription, Game Pass is like that, but for gaming. And I remember when this first came out, so many people were shitting on it. So many people were saying this will never work. I remember the bosses over at Sony at the time, they were saying, "Oh, this is going to be a failure. This is not sustainable." I remember all of this. I remember every single article, and it's just funny how when I look at today, what do we have now on the PlayStation side? We got, what is it called? What do they call it? The PlayStation Network or the PSN Plus? It's basically just a poor man's Game Pass. But good for them in realizing late that this is where things are going. If you just look at things in general, most things are subscription based. Your Adobe, Photoshop, Adobe Premiere Pro, a lot of these things are all subscriber based. Netflix, Hulu, Microsoft, the Word, Microsoft Excel, all of these things are subscriber based. So Phil Spencer and his team seen kind of seen the future in this and seen that this is where this is the direction where things are going, and now Sony are following suit. Kind of funny to me, actually, if you think about it. But I think when I see the talk now that a lot of games that were Microsoft are now appearing on PlayStation. And then people are arguing, saying, well, what's the point of owning an Xbox if I can just play my games on a PlayStation? I think that many of these people, they don't understand what the term licensing means. Do you really think Microsoft putting their games on a Sony console, do you really think Microsoft is doing that out of the kindness of their heart? Do you really think that Microsoft is not benefiting off of this financially? I mean, after all, even Sony was doing uh, Sony pretty much licensed the Blu-ray technology that Microsoft uses in their Xboxes ever since the Xbox One. So for every console that is sold, Microsoft pays a certain amount of money to Sony. Maybe a lot of gamers aren't familiar with this, and that's possible, but I am. And I just think that when I see a lot of the games that were Microsoft exclusive showing up on Sony, Microsoft is making a lot of money with this because let's be realistic. In the United States, there are more people that have a PlayStation than an Xbox. That's a fact. The install base of PlayStation is much, much higher. So it would make sense to get your games in front of as many people as possible because I already have my audience. I already have my Xbox audience. The people who bought it on Xbox, I'm getting that money. But now I can tap into the people that are buying it on PlayStation. Everybody wins. And I think this is the one thing that people are just not like, it's just flying over people's heads. They don't get it. They just don't get it. This is big business. And it's just it just it's frustrating whenever I'm browsing through Facebook groups, or I'm watching certain YouTube videos or Instagram threads, and people are like saying, "Oh, Microsoft is going out of business, Xbox is dying," and I'm like, I just, I just, I'm like, these people don't know jack shit. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. Oh my god! So many times I wanted to make a video about this, but I felt like, you know what? Since my channel is very small and I can bust my ass and put together a video, many people aren't gonna watch my videos anyway. I'm not an Asmongold. I'm not one of these big YouTubers. So even if I were to put forth all of the effort and show all of the factual data on why the console wars died, how Sony screwed over Microsoft at E3 2013. Why is Microsoft putting a lot of their first party games on Sony PlayStation? I can tell all of that, and then it will more than likely be like a 20-minute video or longer. And then when I look at my YouTube analytics and I see most people dip out of the video in like a minute or two, I'm like, fuck this. Why am I gonna put forth all this effort if nobody's gonna watch the shit anyway? So that's why I was like, you know what? Let me just go live. Let me just I don't have to do much editing here. I'm just gonna say what I'm gonna say. People they join the live, they dip out of the live. It is what it is. Maybe some of these same people might watch the live after it's uploaded to YouTube as a regular video. And if they really give a damn about gaming history and want to understand just what the hell is really going on, then they'll watch. If not, then they won't. That's how I look at it, to be perfectly honest. Because a lot of the people that are saying that Microsoft is losing, oh, they're putting this game on PlayStation. These people don't know jack shit about what they're talking about. These are people that all they probably know how to do is press start and mash buttons. They don't understand business, because if they did, they would understand that the fundamental thing that Microsoft is doing is licensing. Microsoft is licensing Sony to use whatever game that was on Xbox on PlayStation, because the fact remains there are more PlayStation owners than Xbox. Microsoft knows it. I know it. A lot of the Sony fanboys, they're like, The Microsoft is going out of business. Yeah, $1 trillion company that, were it not for the FTC and Microsoft's concern of the gaming industry dying, Microsoft could literally, if they wanted to, they could just buy Nintendo. They could buy Sony. I don't think people realize this. This is not my opinion. This is a fact. If you go right now, this is what I try to keep telling people. If you just use a simple Google search, whatever your preferred search engine, Google Sony stock versus Microsoft stock, you will see a huge difference. Huge difference. Microsoft can literally swallow Sony whole. But it won't happen because the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, will step in, much like how Sony bitched and complained to the FTC when Microsoft was trying to make the Activision Blizzard deal. And you know what? That's funny, uh, because all of the exclusive deals that Sony has made over the many, many, many years, And because Microsoft has the money to go out and buy Activision Blizzard, Sony bitched and complained, and what was the crux of their argument? Call of Duty. Let me tell you something. Microsoft did not give a rat's ass about Call of Duty. Only Sony did. That's a fact. The reason why Microsoft went after Activision Blizzard was to get a significant foothold in the mobile market. Cell phone games, little Candy Crush bullshit, those types of games. Those games makes money hand over fist. It was amazing the data that I seen. The mobile market puts the PC and the console market to shame in total revenue. I was I was mind blown. So Microsoft, being the company that they are, the business that they don't give two shits about Sony. I think I think people would be very surprised to learn that Phil Spencer and his team, they don't even consider Sony to be even competition. They don't. Let me tell you who Microsoft views as competition: Amazon, Apple, Disney, big companies. That's who Microsoft measures themselves against. Microsoft could give two shits about Sony. I'm telling you that right now. And I don't think you're gonna hear anybody else tell you this. So I'm giving to you straight, because if you join my channel, if you join whatever, whatever, the one thing I will guarantee you, I will always give it to you straight. I will not mince my words. I will give it to you raw and uncut. I will tell you I will tell you shit the way it is. Microsoft could give a goddamn about Sony. They could care less. So every time I'm hearing these journalists, which a lot of these gaming journalists, they're really Sony fanboys and PC enthusiasts. That's really what they are. They're not unbiased journalists. They have bias, and I've seen this over the years. Um, and so a lot of those publications I stopped reading, like IGN, Kotaku. They're all fucking corporate shills as far as I'm concerned. Um, you know, they will always go on about how, oh, Xbox is you know, Sony is outselling them. Microsoft don't care. They don't give a fuck. Microsoft stopped caring about systems being sold like since the 360 era. They don't care. What Microsoft what they want to do at this point. This is what Microsoft goal is. Microsoft wants to have every single thing that is electronic, that has access to the internet, to be able to access Game Pass. That is Microsoft's true goal and vision. That's what it is. At the end of the day, I'm telling you right now, and there are very few people that understand this market and Microsoft better than I do. And I will gladly challenge anybody to any debate. Anybody. It does not matter. Because I've been following this industry for a long time. Back when I actually had hair. And now I'm kind of like, I ain't got much left anymore. But that's the main plan. It's been the plan ever since its inception. The whole premise of Game Pass was rooted as being the Netflix of gaming. Now, do Microsoft or does Microsoft need an Xbox at this point? No. Microsoft don't need Xbox, but they're going to keep pushing Xbox. Why? Because they can. It's that simple. Microsoft, like I've said, is a $1 trillion company, and here's another thing to keep in mind. Sony, you have cameras, TVs, the PlayStation brand, you have, yeah, cameras, computers. Sony has computers, I forget about that. Microsoft, so these companies, both companies have their own subdivision. The thing that I really like about Microsoft is that the CEO, Satya Nadella, he has 100% confidence in the Xbox brand, and he gives Phil Spencer almost power, unlimited power. That was the only way Microsoft was even able to come up with the money to acquire Activision Blizzard. You really think that money was able to be greenlit by Phil Spencer? Fuck no. The Xbox brand was nowhere near able to pay for that acquisition. Phil Spencer had to go and make a request, and because the CEO believed so fervently, so strongly in Phil, is part of the reason why I still remain Xbox. Because when you have the CEO of a $1 trillion company backing the guy that is pushing your gaming console, that tells me that the future is very bright and they will spare no expense to make a console great or to acquire a studio or team to make great games. Now, I will admit, Microsoft, for whatever the reasons, they stumble getting games out the gate. So that's the thing I will give Sony credit for. A lot of their teams, the Sony teams, they do they do a better job at getting their games to market. Um, but when it comes to just sheer assets and money, Sony is woefully behind Microsoft. In fact, um, that $400 million hit that Sony took from that DEI bullshit ass game called Concord really set them back. Sony, just to kind of let you in on this, Sony really wanted the game Concord to be a success. The original plan was to utilize Concord to sell or to be a system mover for the PS5 Pro. That was one of their plans. Unfortunately for Sony, uh, that DEI-centric arena shooter died, I believe, in 2 weeks of it going live. So Sony lost out on $400 million. You can't make this up. You can't make this up, and the thing is, I just wanna be clear. I don't hate Sony. I respect the console. I respect the hardware. I think Mark Cerny, the architect of their consoles, I think he's a very brilliant man. It's the people that market it. It's the people at the very top that make the decisions. I'm not a fan of them. I'm just not, and I feel that Microsoft makes better decisions, in my opinion, but Sony has such a strong grasp on people. You would think that Americans, right, you and I, right, we would take more pride in an American-made console, but we're so, quick to bend our knees and kowtow to Sony and Nintendo, which are both Asian companies, by the way. Well, I think people forget about this actually, that it's like, I don't think they really care about us the same way we care about them. I'm just putting it out there. And, people can take that how they wish, but, I realized that, toward the end of the Xbox 360 era, where Microsoft was making so much effort to appeal to the Japanese market by getting so many of the games that are traditionally liked by Japanese audiences and just out of sheer bias, 100% bias, the Xbox 360 died in the Japanese market, and this is what prompted, as I said earlier in the stream, to where Microsoft decided to place Japan or the Asian markets as a tier 2 territory. And ever since then, Microsoft has just been focused on the Game Pass and the United States and the UK. That's basically it. So already from that point on, Microsoft has basically conceded all of this console war bullshit. That's when it happened toward the end of the 360 era. So when you look at what Microsoft is doing now, Microsoft, when they put one of their exclusives on Sony, every time you as a Sony user buy, let's say, I've heard reports they're gonna put Halo on PlayStation, Halo and Gears of War. So let's say now you're a PlayStation owner and you're like, "Oh shit, I get to finally play Halo," or whatever. You go and buy Halo. Out of that 69 or 59.99 that you spent on the game, there is a certain percentage of that money that is going right back to Microsoft. And Microsoft don't care if you're playing it on Xbox, if you're playing it on PC. They don't give two shits. All Microsoft cares is if you are playing their games. This is why in recent, I think in the last month, if I'm not mistaken, there was, articles coming out that people were not feeling Microsoft's current campaign. I don't know if you've seen it. It was, this thing where they said, "This is an Xbox. This is an Xbox. That's a cat box." People didn't understand 'cause I used to be in marketing heavy, and I understand the marketing point of it. What they're basically saying is, if it can if it can connect to the internet, it can be an X. Hell, even if it can't connect to an internet, you could just download it. Well, anyway, that's the whole point. That is the whole point. And I do see a future where Microsoft is going to get so huge that eventually you are going to see Xbox Game Pass take over PSN and appear on PlayStation. I do see that happening. And I also see it happening on Nintendo as well. I see it eventually happening. Now, I can see it. Is it 100% gonna happen? I don't know, but I will not be surprised because much like how you can access Game Pass on your PC, I can see that happening on I can see a future where you log into your PlayStation and you see a completely separate section of Xbox Game Pass. If you wanna try it, they may have a free trial, but then you would have the same tiers that us Xbox users have, right? We have the standard, I think it's called I think it's called the standard or the console, and then you have the ultimate. And I feel eventually that it will appear on Sony and Nintendo consoles. A lot of people don't even know that you can actually get Game Pass on television, smart TVs, I believe. I think you can get them on certain model Samsung TVs, and I think you can get it on certain model of LG TVs. You can literally just you don't even need an Xbox. You can just play, from you can you have access to Game Pass, and you can play those games directly from the cloud. And so when I see that, what's to stop that from happening, for it appearing on Sony and Nintendo? Because this is the reason why I'm kinda seeing this as a possibility is the willingness of Microsoft allowing their marquee games to go over to Sony. This is I remember when Phil Spencer said this in an interview one time. It might have been toward the end of last year. It was the first I think it was when they were going to put on, what was that game? Sea of Thieves. They were going to put Sea of Thieves. I think they put Forza, if I'm not mistaken. It was 3 games they put. I do know Sea of Thieves was one of them. And the interviewer asked, can we expect more Microsoft titles to appear on PlayStation?" And Phil was non-committal to it. He didn't say yes, he didn't say no, but it was he was kinda like, "Okay, we'll look." The way I took the answer was, "We're gonna see how it goes." And apparently it must have went very well. So this is why I see this as a possibility. Um, and and the way I would see this is, um, Microsoft licensing Game Pass to appear on a Sony console. Sony will give Microsoft a certain amount of money to have that on their console, and for every game that you let's say you download a game from the Game Pass app onto your PlayStation, Microsoft will also get uh, a revenue from that. So it's going to be like this never-ending stream of revenue. And will Microsoft make consoles still? Yes, I do believe. In fact, Microsoft already has a handheld on the way. For those that don't know, Microsoft has a handheld, and they are going to make a standalone console as well. That's already in the works. So, for people who say, "Why should I get an Xbox?" You get an Xbox because you want to. It's that simple. Can Microsoft come out and really say that? No. Microsoft could not just say that. They can't. The media will eat them alive. But that's really if you read in between the lines, that's what it is because historically, consoles don't yield the company profit. They don't. It was never about all the console is to get you in that ecosystem, to buy the PlayStation controller, the PlayStation games, to buy your PlayStation Network. That's what that's for. So, what Microsoft is doing, if you can really see it, is they're basically utilizing Game Pass to do the exact same thing in a more digital way, not in a physical hardware type of way. But because they're still doing the hardware, they're going to get money from both fronts. And so it's like that old saying, Sony is playing chess, Microsoft no, Sony is playing checkers, Microsoft is playing chess. And I just don't know if Sony is ever gonna catch up and just realize this. Um, so that is what I really wanted to say about that when it comes to Microsoft's desire, or should I say their marketing of putting Xbox exclusives on Sony. Now, what's the next topic? Ah, yes. Let's talk about some of the gaming franchises that have literally gone to so I can talk about, hold on, let me get a swig of water, actually. So, if you look at what's happening recently right now, Ubisoft with Assassin's Creed Shadows, and I've made so many videos about this on my channel. Man, I should put all of them into a playlist, honestly. When you look at BioWare, just recently, BioWare, as far as I'm concerned, is a dead franchise, a dead company. If you look at Halo at this point is pretty much done. And what they all have in common is Microsoft, the way they handled Halo and giving it over to 343 Studios, uh, they just went away from the formula that worked. It's like going to a it it's like going to a restaurant, right? And you order, like, your favorite meal, and, you've been going there for a few months, and then all of a sudden, you go back one day, and you go and taste it, and it's like, it's not quite how you remember because they changed the formula. Maybe they changed the cook, they changed the ingredients, whatever. They changed it, and eventually, you just stop eating it. You might stick with it for a time, right? But eventually, you're just gonna stop, and I think that is what happened with games like Gears of War, Halo, uh, um, Dragon Age, Assassin's Creed. There are so many games right now that, literally have fallen off and just lost their way, and largely, it's because of DEI hires that they honestly don't know their ass from a hole in the ground. These are people that were hired not because they are credible at their job. They were hired just to satisfy a specific quota, and you see this in the quality of the game. Many people will say how Halo has not been good since Call of Duty has not been good since Dragon Age, and it goes on and on and on and on. And the one fundamental thing that they all have in common is all of this DEI and woke bullshit that's been put into those franchises. That's what it was. There was a time I remember, because I 'cause I'm more of a fighting game player, right, when it comes to tournaments, and but I'd always, keep my ear to the ground with first person shooters, and I would hear people talk all the time about Call of Duty and, Modern Warfare. Everybody loved that game. Everybody they couldn't stop talking about this game. And then it's like, certain Call of Duty games came out, and people, like, they just trashing the game, people that were long-time fans, they're like, "Oh, this Call of Duty sucks." I'm even hearing people don't even like Call of Duty Black Ops what is it, Black Ops 6? Black Ops 3? Whatever it is, Black Ops 6, whatever it is. I forgot what number. I think it's Black Ops, right? Black Ops 6? The latest game, Black Ops. And, people don't like that game. I heard one of them, if I'm not mistaken, had, transsexual bullets as DLC. I could not believe that. I'm like, "Shit, if that's true, that's wild." Um, it's just it's sad. It's sad to see this is the current state of gaming as I know it. With me going around the mountain and breaking down Microsoft and Sony and all that, it brings me to this. It brings me to this point where I look at this generation and it's sad to me. Sad that so many franchises are either on a light or they're either on a respirator or they're dead. And it's sad. Like when I look at 2024, the end of 2024 should have been a return to form in so many ways. And the reason why I say that is BioWare had Dragon Age the Veilguard on Halloween, last day in October, and originally, Ubisoft was gonna come out with Assassin's Creed Shadows on the November 15th. And these were 2 games, 2 major franchises that should have been a layup. It should have been an easy success for both companies, for both BioWare and Ubisoft. But what ended up happening? DEI, DEI, DEI. That's what ended up happening. Ubisoft wanted to pander to the woke audiences, because of what happened during the whole George Floyd situation, and they ended up taking the already created and planned dual shinobi, male and female. They get rid of the male shinobi, and they insert a black character, which was Yasuke. The only thing that people can agree with is that, 1, he was black, 2, he was in feudal Japan during that era of I think the Sengoku era, if I'm not mistaken, and he came off of Portuguese ship. That is literally the only thing everybody can seemingly agree. When it came time to, whether he was a samurai or not, that's when people were like, most of the Japanese historians, he wasn't a samurai. He was a retainer or at the least a bodyguard to, Nobu Obunaga. I think that was the shogun at that time. That was it. But Ubisoft, a French company, was trying to dictate and tell the Japanese people what their culture was. If that don't make any sense to you, trust me, you're not alone, 'cause it didn't make sense to me either. Again, let me Ubisoft is a French company, white people, trying to dictate Japanese culture to Japanese. You can't make this up. So, um, I'm not surprised that the game has been going through hell, literally, ever since its announcement. And my only interest in that game is because of female ninja. But then when we shift gears and look toward BioWare, you have one of the best RPGs in the gaming landscape in Dragon Age, one of the most universally loved franchises. And its last game was, uh, Dragon Age Inquisition, which was, I believe, in 2014. And, so 10 years, they finally come out with Veilguard, and, it's filled with a bunch of nonsensical DEI, mental illness bullshit. And now the game has died. There was no meaningful downloadable content to extend the game in any kind of meaningful way. There was none of it. The last game, Inquisition, had 3, significant DLCs, Jaws of Harkon, The Descent, and Trespasser. Had 3, very good, DLC. Dragon Age: The Veilguard had nothing. So, when I saw that the Veilguard Dragon Age had no DLC and, you learned that the game missed its sales target by, like, 50%, and a lot of these games and franchises, they have failed because of DEI. This is what happens when you hire people who believe that there is, like, a bajillion, uh, different sexes. This is what happens, and it's not my opinion. It's not my opinion at all. It is an absolute fact. When you insert DEI practices in these games, in these franchises, they die. In fact, if you look at DEI, DEI is essentially die. If you just rearrange the words, it's die. DEI, DIE. So when you it's like a play on words. These franchises that focus on DEI, the franchises die. I mean, I'm not trying to be funny, but it is kinda funny when you really think about it. It just kinda like, you know what? Yeah, that does make sense because it does. When you look at their upcoming game, another upcoming game called, Kingdom Come, right? That's a game that's pretty popular. It's coming out, I think, the next couple of days, actually, where you have a character that's canonically, a Christian, a straight man, and in the second game, you now have these mental illness gay options to turn him queer. And while I do understand it is only a choice and you don't have to make the choice, I understand that more than most because back in my day of playing the original Dragon Age, the original Mass Effect, there were several decisions that you can go and romance your companion if they're same sex. Anybody that's played the original Mass Effect and Dragon Age can tell you that. We've seen those options all the time. But we kept playing the game because the rest of the game was godlike. The story was good, the graphics was good, but I think at this point, the way people feel now, we are collectively sick and tired of this DEI bullshit being pushed and shoehorned into our games because it offers absolutely no benefit. It offers no enhancement to the game. In fact, the amount of resources that it takes the developer to create those gay scenes, those gay options, all of that doesn't just happen. That is time taken by the developers, the animators, the writers to create all that shit. Can you imagine if they would have put that same time and effort into the other aspects of the game? That's something that I think about. And it just it's like you say, when will these companies realize? When will they learn that this shit does not work? That the vast majority of gamers are tired of it. They don't buy into it. They don't want it, but they keep pushing it because these companies get ESG funding. That's why. That is why you see a whole bunch of this mental illness, gay, same-sex fuckery in our video games, and I've said this in several videos. In fact, I made a playlist on my channel. I think I called it DEI and ESG or something like that. I made 5 videos on it, and I put it all into one playlist. Now, if I was a huge YouTuber with, like, I don't know, 50,000 subscribers, I guarantee you each one of those videos I made would go viral. But because, I'm a tiny YouTuber, I'm not on anybody's radar for the most part. I struggle to even get 50 views on my videos most of the time. A lot of times my videos go under the radar, but 100% I break down exactly why these companies continue to push this DEI stuff in video games. So when I see other channels like, Dr. Disaster One, Endymion, Geeks and Gamers, all these other YouTube channels, and there's a lot that I follow, and they're put and they're doing what they're doing. They're making their YouTube money and their ad revenue, and I say to myself, "Self, I'm basically saying the same goddamn thing. In fact, I'm actually going into more detail explaining you why and how this shit is and I can barely crack 100 views sometimes on my best day. It's just, so it is kind of frustrating as a creator on YouTube, and but I try to keep pushing forward because every once in a blue moon, I do get a video that gets like over 800 views. I have 3 videos that have over 1,000 views, but I just feel like I just got lucky, honestly. It's nothing consistent, you know? Um, my first video that I had over 1,000 views, I literally only had, and not to say I don't appreciate it, but I only had 4 subscribers out of that whole time. So that one video had over 1,000 views and only 4 people subbed to the channel. So I'm like, "Okay." And mind you, I had like over 100 comments on it. So it's just it does get kind of annoying when you know deep down you are speaking to the very thing that people are searching for, people are looking for, and you look at the other channels that are pretty much doing the same shit you doing, but you're barely cracking, you're barely just you just can't get in. So it does get frustrating, and I think, what really does help me out is when people do comment and they say, some nice words or whatever, and so that kinda does keep the confidence going, but best believe, I know 1,000% why these companies continue to push this messaging. In one of the other videos I made, I explained exactly why the creator of Kingdom Come: Deliverance to Daniel Vavra, I explained exactly why he caved and decided to add those woke elements to the upcoming game. I explained exactly why. You know, it's very hard. Let me tell you something. It's very hard for a game developer or even a movie creator, because this shit goes beyond video games. But I understand this is a gaming stream, but just best believe DEI and also the bullshit, it ruins more than just gaming. It's very hard for developers and smaller publishers, independent studios, to get their game off the ground. It costs a lot of money. It costs a lot of money. You have to factor in the research and development, paying the workers, marketing, distribution. There's so much that goes into getting a video game into our hands where we can now press start and play. There's a lot that goes into it. So when you have these super companies like BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, and other major financial holding companies that damn near control everything in the United States, let alone the world, and then you have these same companies pushing whatever agenda that they're trying to push, and they're they're basically contacting companies that we say are large, like Disney. Disney is a very large company, but they are also getting funded by ESG. This is the reason why Disney has all this woke bullshit in Star Wars and why that franchise has died. So I explain to people that when you are checking off as many DEI boxes, right? Whether you are adding a tranny, adding a gay sex scene, adding a gay couples, um, changing a white character to a black character, changing a black character to a white character, basically race swap. When you do all of these things, you increase, as I've said in another stream, you increase your ESG score. And at the same time, you lower your ESG risk. So they're intrinsically connected, right? So the higher your ESG score, the lower your risk. The lower your ESG score, the higher your ESG risk. So hopefully that makes sense. So to make it simple, if you have a very low ESG risk rating, these big super companies will subsidize your project by a certain percentage. So instead of, I think the example I gave in one of my other live streams, I said, if you're making an 80 million, if your game or show or movie costs $80 million, if you are checking off a lot of these DEI boxes, you could potentially only have to spend 30 million because the other 50 million is coming from and being funded by the ESG because basically selling out. You're sacrificing your creative vision to push their agenda so that you can get the financing that you need to get your project off the ground. And this is exactly what happened with Daniel Vavra of Warhorse Studios for their upcoming Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 game. And when I tell people this, whether I tell it on my channel or I'm in a conversation with some of my friends, that I'm telling them like this is why you have all of this woke, this gay bullshit in video games. This is why. And you can see a million and one YouTubers complaining, bitching and complaining. It's like I tell you, this is why, and I don't see it changing. I don't see it ending. Virtually every triple A publisher or developer bends the knee to DEI. Virtually every single one. There are a few exceptions, but for the most part, Nintendo, Microsoft, Sony, Electronic Arts, Ubisoft, Capcom, every single big budget gaming company all has DEI fuckery in the company. It is what it is. So that's why when I maybe maybe if and when I'm ever monetized on YouTube, maybe I will be one of those guys that will push out video after video to get that YouTube ad revenue, because that's what I see a lot of my peers do, right? This is what I see people do. I literally see these guys pump out video after video, and it's like a lot of times when I go through the video, there really isn't like it'll be a 10-minute video, and like 8 minutes of it is them literally rehashing the same shit they did in the prior video, and then only the last 2 minutes is like actual new information. So who knows? Maybe if by some off chance miracle I get an additional 700 subscribers, where I can get 1,000 subscribers, so I can actually get monetized on this platform, maybe I will end up doing the same thing. I don't know. But I do know right now, this is what I see. Literally, I don't see much originality. I don't see much I don't see much of anything. I literally know that the way the current landscape of gaming is today is if you are a big budget publisher and you are creating a video game that is gonna cost you tens of millions of dollars to get off the ground and into our hand where we can play this shit on our controller, more often than not, you will see DEI bullshit in the game. To what degree? You might see it a lot, you might see it a little, but you're probably going to see it. That's the current landscape. And I don't know. I don't know if it'll ever change. I know, Trump, thank God, is doing what he can to fight this DEI bullshit, but these people are so dug in, it's hard to get rid of them. You got these consulting groups like Sweet Baby Inc., which you may or may not have heard of. These consulting groups, air quotes, because they they just they fuck up the vision. Let's just call it what it is. Every single I've literally seen reports that every game that was consulted by Sweet Baby Inc. has, I don't want to say all of them, but I would say the vast majority have failed. They flopped, they were financial failures, and or the studio working on the game is either on a respirator or that studio is dead. So you have to question if we understand the definition of insanity is doing the same thing but expecting a different result, then why is it that the gaming industry, all of these publishers are continually pushing this DEI woke nonsense into our games and they're consistently failing. Why are they doing this? And the why is simple, because they are getting funded through ESG funds. That's why. That's why it's continually happening. That's why it will more than likely continue to happen. When I looked at the latest games that's coming out from the Game Awards that was shown last year, that guy, they call him Neil Cuck. Oh man, people. His real name is Neil Druckmann. What a stupid name. So he has this game coming out, and I was contemplating making a video about it, but I'm like, maybe I'm late to the party on that. But I think it's called Intergalactic or some shit like that. It has some chick that has a haircut like me, no hair, looks Asian. You may have seen this. It was like a outer space type of game. I think she's supposed to be a bounty hunter. She's talking to some other chick on the monitor. She has a lot of the YouTubers use the image of her sipping out of a styrofoam cup. I know that game is that game is about as DEI woke as you're gonna get. Like, that's just a game for lesbians as far as I'm concerned. I have no interest in that shit whatsoever. Even if I owned a PlayStation, I would not buy that game. I wouldn't support that game. Now, at the same time, I can kinda respect their effort in creating a game for them. I can respect it. I'd much rather them being the gays, the lesbians, the trannies, the woke, I'd much rather them make original content for their own audiences than to come into already established franchises that we, us normal men and women love, that are just basically being destroyed by the alphabet community and by the woke. So, I know that that intergalactic game, that shit is not for me. But I'm still gonna be interested in seeing just how well that game performs, and I have a feeling that game is going to be a massive flop. I have a feeling whenever that game comes out, maybe 2026, I don't know what the release date of that game is, but I will definitely be making videos off of that game's, launch, because I have a feeling I know for a fact that game is gonna cost a lot of money to make, 'cause the game does look visually, graphically ambitious, and a game like that is not cheap to make. And I have a very strong feeling when that game launches, it will not break even, and it will damn sure not make it will just not make back the money it took to make. I'm pretty sure. Much like Dragon Age: The Veilguard failed to break even, much like a lot of these games that have these DEI woke elements. That's basically what I see is going to happen. But it's, it's gonna be interesting to see how much longer these games are gonna keep pushing these DEI metrics. I guess they're gonna keep going until the ESG money runs out, if it does, because games that don't push that, like Black Myth Wukong, that game called Space Marine, I think it's Space Marines 2, those games didn't push that, and they've done very good numbers, very good sales numbers. Elden Ring, I believe, well, if they did have anything, I didn't notice it, and that's another thing, like, if they're gonna do it, if they're very subtle about it to where people don't really notice it, or even if you do notice it, it's not to the point where it's, like, really invasive or intrusive. I think people would be willing to tolerate it, and that's what happened with me and many other players like myself that played the original Mass Effect and Dragon Age years ago. We were very tolerant because while, you know, if I'm using a male created character and all of a sudden my male companion starts flirting with my character and I'm given this option to, like, flirt back, I'm like, "What is this?" Uh, but typically, after I've made my choice, it kinda goes away, and then you're right back into the great storytelling and the writing, and so on and so forth, and the gameplay. But, a lot of these games nowadays, they're just not doing it right, and, um and then also in my in one of the other sh in one of the other streams I did, I went online and I wanted to see just how many people are gay that play video games. I just typed it in, I think I just went and typed in, how many gamers are gay or something like that, and the number that came up was 17%. So, basically, according to GLAAD, which I believe is one of their, main websites for the gay and lesbian people, um, I believe it was about 17% of the gaming community that was gay, and so now my math is not the best, but if you take 17 away from 100, I believe that's 83% left. So if we're going by their numbers, that would mean that 83% of the gaming world is straight men and women. So when you have a video game that costs you $100 million to make, and you are catering to only 17% of the market, to say your game is gonna financially flop is an understatement. Your game has no chance. No chance. And this is why I make the argument of, if these people really wanted to create their own, why don't they just these big companies like, whether it's Namco or Microsoft, EA, give them smaller budgets, maybe 10, maybe $20 million. Let them create something for their own community, which by their own number estimation is only 17%. You know what that's like? Let me tell you what that's like. That's like if I'm inviting people over to my house, right? And I go to the supermarket and I buy enough food for, I don't know, 10 people, but only 4 people show up. I think I just wasted money, right? If I bought food for 10 people, but only 4 people showed up, oh yeah, I lost money. And that's what these companies are doing. They're putting they're creating these games that have such a huge, massive budget, but the game is pretty much directed toward a community of 17%. So if you're just using common sense, you'd realize, okay, this shit is just like the Titanic. It's destined to fail. So why do they keep doing it? Ah, they do it because it's part of the agenda, and the vast majority of the money that's being put up for that project is not even coming from the publisher, it's coming out of ESG funding. That's why these companies continue to do this, and that's why they're able to survive financial flops the way they have because it's not 100% their own money that they're using. And a lot of gamers do not know this. Many YouTubers won't even fucking tell you because your favorite YouTuber probably won't even know this shit either. And it's not really their fault. A lot of this is not so easily found. You kind of have to do a little bit of digging, a little bit of investigating to understand, okay, where is all this money coming from? Where is this money going? Like you have to find this out. And I've always been a fanatic when it comes to this because I always wanted to understand why are so many gaming franchises failing? If I go to another gaming franchise, and I haven't even made a video on this at all yet, if I look at Gears of War, now that might strike a nerve with some people. Oh my god, I'm still debating if I really wanna make a standalone video for this. Maybe I will, but I guess I could just yap about it right here to the whopping 2 people that's still here. God bless the 2 of you. But I will just say Gears of War, ever since Cliff Bleszinski left, Epic Games, that franchise has gone to hell. Now, me being an Xbox guy, a Microsoft guy, that hurt me more because that was like our game. That was our shit. That Gears of War was like I'm not even I am not even a shooter type player. I'm more of a, fighting game guy, an adventure guy. But when Gears of War first came out, it was like a phenomenon that swept across the gaming landscape. It was like nothing I have never seen. There are people, many people to this day that are still playing the original Xbox 360 versions of the game. Still. And that game, that franchise was made basically for men. It was just testosterone through the roof. It was like it was like just watching old '80s movies, old '80s action flicks, or maybe even early '90s in video game form. Yeah, you had women in, and I will admit, I respect that they played very good supportive roles, very good supportive roles. But the main attraction, the main point was the men, the tale of brotherhood, brotherhood in arms. Once Cliff Bleszinski left or he was fired, I forget what the details of that, and, Microsoft ends up buying it, and they came out with, Gears of War 4. Now, if it wasn't for me thinking that people would disappear, all 2 of you, I would literally go into my room right now, and I will bring out my Gears of War 4 game, but, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna be a fanatic like that. But the cover of the game had JD Phoenix, Dell, and Kate. Let me tell you, that was one of the greatest bait and switches I have ever seen. Let me break down what I mean by that. From the very moment I played Gears of War 4, and I remember it like it was yesterday, I thought it was odd that most of the early part of the game, you were fighting machines, droids, right? You like, the story of the Locust was kinda done. They had a woman, an Asian woman as, like, the new Prescott. She looked very lesbianish, very tall, no real feminine features. And then every now and then in the game, it just felt like JD Phoenix was just this bumbling idiot, along with the sidekick, the black character, Dell. Again, they just wanted to make the black character look like an idiot, which I hate to see. But we see it in a lot of times in movies and TV shows as well. Um, but that's a whole nother discussion. But you know who didn't look like an idiot? Kate. I've always noticed that in most of the scenes in Gears of War 4, she was always the one that kinda stole the scene, had the last word, had the more impactful I didn't notice it at first, but as I played through the game, and then I beat the game, and then I played it again, I watched a few, YouTube videos from Gears of War centric creators, and I was like, "Yeah, this is kind of odd." And then we have Gears 5, and Gears 5, and if and oh, we got 2 more people. Okay, so I'm just talking about how anyway, just stay with me. Let me cook for a bit. I'm talking about Gears of War. And so what I noticed from Gears of War 4 to Gears 5, instead of like I said, Gears of War 4, you had Dell, JD, and Kate on the cover of the box. And then on Gears 5, it was just Kate primarily. If I'm not I think it was just her on the box cover. And it's like there was a scene in the game. Now, mind you, I did not beat Gears of War 5, but I did watch the ending on YouTube. And she's set apart, and I don't know if there's anybody that played the game in the chat. Maybe you guys don't even know what the hell I'm even talking about. But there's a part where it was her, Mel, Marcus. It's when she was having those nightmares, and I think she just killed her uncle, and she was like, "I've been having nightmares, and I've been," and then Marcus intervenes and says, "I know a place up north." And then JD comes in with like the arm. He had the arm issue going on, and he says, "No, we're not doing this. We're going to round up, and we're going to leave, whatever, whatever." And she turned around and said, "Screw your orders. This isn't about you. This is about me." When I fucking seen that scene, I was like, little did I realize in the Gears of War community, that one scene basically told all of us that this was no longer about Marcus Phoenix. This shit wasn't even about his son anymore. This was all about their fucking DEI character that they were pushing from the very beginning, very subtly in Gears of War 4. That is a 100% fucking facts. And anybody that wants to disagree, please. My comment section is always open because that's what I noticed. I was like, and then they just made the son of Marcus Phoenix more and more of an idiot, more and more insufferable. And it's like, that's what I say. It was just the bait and switch. Now, I will admit, I don't, it's not that I don't like Kate Diaz, the character in Gears of War. I think she's a good character, but just not for Gears of War. That's just my opinion, right? And I'm glad Mr. Randy Savage agrees. And no, you did not miss much. I just think if this is what I okay, you know what I would have liked to have seen? This is what I would have liked to see them do with Gears of War. What they should have done is they should have made a spin-off game much like they did with Gears of War. Oh, what was that one with, it was after Gears 3. It was, Judgment, Gears of War Judgment. I heard I heard some people liked it, I heard some people didn't like it. I didn't play it, I just watched a playthrough of it on YouTube, but that game basically centered around Baird and Cole, and basically their team, and I think what they should have done was make a Gears of War game if they wanted to focus on Kate Diaz, but focus on her and a team. Where they fucked up, in my opinion, was you're inserting this very strong female character into the main timeline, into the main story of Marcus Phoenix and his goddamn son. Nobody We did not want a girl boss in Gears of War in that instance. That's not what made the franchise sell millions. So, I say all of that to say this. When I saw the announcement of Gears of War E-Day, where it's a prequel and they're showing Dominic and Marcus, I laughed my collective ass off. I laughed my ass off because I knew exactly what they were doing. See, Epic and Microsoft, or no, not Epic, the Coalition, excuse me, those are the ones who developed the game. They screwed themselves, and they know they did. The sales of Gears 5, that shit was abysmal compared to Gears of War 1, 2, and 3. It was abysmal. I know it is. I don't even need to look it up. I already know the sales of Gears 5 was shit. Nobody, and when I say nobody, it's a figure of speech. I'm sure there might be like 1 out of 10 people that like Gears 5, the story, but the vast majority did not. Let's just be honest. I'm being honest between me and you, right? And it's like they knew that if they come out with Gear 6, that shit would have been ratioed on YouTube. That shit would have flopped immediately. So they had to create a distraction. And what better distraction than to bring back Marcus Phoenix and Dominic Santiago and tell the story of Emergence Day. The very story that they could have literally created this game, uh, instead of Gears of War 4, they could have created that game at that time, because the whole lore behind Gears of War was Emergence Day, the what's the other one? The Pendulum Wars. Those are the 2 significant events that were spoken of, but were never shown. So that's why when you play Gears of War 1, as Randy Savage here is well aware of, it at the very beginning, it says, I think how many years after? I think it was like 30 or 20 years after E-Day. It was one of those, like, I might be off, but it was several years after E-Day. So now, instead of finishing, because I've never seen this before. I've never seen an obvious trilogy, a development studio making a trilogy, whether it's a movie, whether it's a TV, whatever it is. I've never seen a trilogy get interrupted to create a prequel. I've never seen it. I've ne if any the 4 of you have seen this in gaming or even in movies, let me know, because the trilogy of Gears of War 1, 2, and 3, then you had Judgment, then you have Gears 4, 5, and it should be Gears 6, but in between Gears 5 and 6, we're having Gears of War E-Day. Why? So that's why. They are trying to salvage what they can of the Gears community that abandoned them, uh, after Gears 4. Because a lot of the community of Gears of War, they did try Gears 4. They did give it a chance, and many of the Gears community, they just it wasn't for them, and many of the Gears community didn't even bother with Gears 5, and I played it, I was like, "Why not?" But when I saw what was the story, I realized the story very early on that they wanted to have Kate Diaz. The story was her becoming the Locust Queen, and I remember I was telling some of my friends, I was actually even telling the entire story the way I think they're gonna do it in Gear 6 is eventually, Kate is going to be the new Locust Queen. Spoiler, right? She will become the new Locust Queen, and what's gonna happen is there's gonna be a scene. Now, this is just me speculating, but I don't see it going any other way. She's gonna become the new Locust Queen, and there's gonna be a situation where JD is gonna it he's gonna be hesitant on finishing her because he's gonna think about how she was, his, boyfriend, girlfriend bullshit, and she's going to attempt to kill him, and Marcus Phoenix is gonna step in the way and get killed to save his son. I bet you any amount of money that is the plan for Gears of War 6. I cannot see it happening any other way. I just cannot. And so that bullshit choice that they gave you in Gears of War 5, where I think I think it was Mira, Queen Mira or whatever. I think it was Mira, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it was Mira, and you had to choose between allowing either JD to live or Dell. Well, we all know it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know this. We all know that the canon ending is that JD is gonna live. So they basically killed off Dell, which I think he was a cool character, but they got rid of him. And so that's what I see happening. Eventually, Kate is gonna give in on some Anakin Skywalker shit. Uh, just like he became Darth Vader, Kate is gonna become the new Locust Queen. JD is gonna try to appeal to Kate and try to get her to turn back to being good and appeal to her humanity. She's gonna try to kill JD. Marcus Phoenix is gonna come dashing in from off screen. He's gonna dive in or take the blunt of the hit, and then you're gonna see JD is gonna get pissed off, enraged, have a Gohan Super Saiyan moment. He's gonna go crazy. He's gonna kill Kate, the Locust Queen, and then you're gonna have the death scene of Marcus Phoenix dying in JD's arm, and you're gonna see JD probably clutching his dog tags and say, "Dad, I love you." Stuff. And that's the end of Gears 6 and the death of another franchise. That is what I see happen in the Gears of War. And I can tell you this much. This is something else I'm going to say. Again, if I was a larger YouTuber, if I had the reach of like an Asmongold, and I'm saying this, guaranteed this one section would go viral. I'm willing to wager this. And eventually I wouldn't be surprised if this clip, if it went viral, would find its way to the coalition, and they'll probably be like, damn, this guy, this red related guy just completely predicted our entire ending of Gears of War, and they might change it or they might just push through it. But I do see them killing off Marcus Phoenix, uh, for Marcus Phoenix trying to. to sacrifice himself for his son, uh, due to JD trying to appeal to Queen Kate because she will become the new Locust Queen. That is what I see happening. And if it happens to go different, I very much doubt it. But I don't see where else they can take the story because I don't think they're smart enough to take it in another direction where it's going to be profitable and succeed. And this is the main reason why the coalition slash Microsoft are coming out with Gears of War E-Day. That is the prime reason. It's I guarantee you this: if Gears 5 succeeded, if Gears 5 was a commercial slash financial success, you would not have had Gears E-Day. I I bet my soul, my very soul, like on some fucking Thanos should just take my soul out my body on live stream. I bet my soul that there would be no such thing as a Gears of War E-Day. It might have happened after, but it would not be happening in between Gears 5 and 6. There's no way in fucking hell. The only reason why that shit is happening is because the coalition realized that they screwed up, but they wrote themselves into a hole. Now they have to finish the story. They have to. And unless they pull some sort of an ass pull or some kind of retcon, I don't see what they're going to do that would make the franchise succeed. And thus, we're going to have another franchise basically die. And I feel very strongly about that because Gears of War is one of those franchises I love. I love Gears of War. But, what happened to that franchise to me is a travesty. Um, you know, like I said, the Kate Diaz character, I feel she is a good character. I like her character design. I like her voice acting. I think she's a good character, but just in this, not in Gears of War with Marcus Phoenix and his son. That is not the place you put a character like Kate Diaz. It's not the place. What you do with a Kate Diaz is you give her her own separate game. You let her have her own separate game with her own squad, and maybe at certain points in her story, she'll encounter Delta Squad. Because the whole planet of Sarah is at war with the Locust. So that is what you do. That would, in my opinion, would have been much better. And eventually, it could have, once they may let Marcus go away at some point with dignity, then you can probably do a collab where now you have JB and Kate then get together officially, together. That would be much better writing than inserting this girl boss, because that's what she is, into the dynamic between the father and son, the father being the main reason why Gears of War is even popular in the first place. That is what the issue is from a narrative standpoint with Gears of War. I know it has a lot of other problems from a competitive standpoint. I don't know. I'm not a competitive Gears of War player, but from a narrative campaign storyline, that is the issue. That's the issue. Now, if you turn over to say Halo, now Halo is that's a special one. Halo Halo is a little bit easier to break down. I think what went wrong with Halo is I'm sure there were some DEI influences there, but I think it kind of started similar to Gears of War. After Halo 3, much like Gears 3, you had a changing in fact, it's crazy how I just realized this. They're almost the same if you think about it. Gears of War and Halo, they they both essentially have trilogies, right? Halo 1, 2, and 3, Gears of War 1, 2, and 3. And after the 3rd game, I mean, I don't know about Reach, not too sure, but, uh, Bungie decided to leave, much like Cliff Bleszinski left Gears of War. And then the Coalition started to make the next Gears of War games, and now Microsoft, created 343 Studios to make the next Halo trilogy. And what ends up happening is both of those trilogies have not been performing very well. Much like Gears 4, Halo 4, I think Halo players, the Halo community gave that game a chance, and I think that largely the community just didn't like what they saw. And then you had Halo 5, which I have, Halo 5 Guardians, and that crazy storyline where you're using, Commander Locke, and it's like a completely different team, and you're supposed to be finding Master Chief's team. It was kind of a weird story. I don't know if anybody even liked Halo 5, but I have a feeling that that was really where things started to really spiral out of control, in my opinion. From a story campaign. Like I said, I didn't play either Gears or Halo competitively. I'm just speaking from a storyline standpoint. But I think Halo started to go down. I think I've even heard some people say after Halo Reach, because a lot of people tend to like I think people liked Halo Reach and I think that ODST, but Halo 4, Halo 5 wasn't really a high point for a lot of Halo players. The same with Gears of War 4 and 5. So, in some weird, crazy way, Gears and Halo kinda have the same issue, and those issues arose around the same time. Gears 4, Halo 4. I might be off, but, I don't know. Maybe. I don't really don't know, but I just think that that whole Gears of War I mean, excuse me, the Halo 5 story, I think that story just I don't know what they wanted to do with that story. I played through it and I still didn't understand it. Like, you're, like, chasing after Master Chief and his team because they allegedly did X, Y, and Z, and, it just didn't make any sense to me. It seemed like a lot of filler. I mean, graphically, the cutscenes look fucking phenomenal, out of this world. But it just fell apart narratively. It really just fell apart, in my opinion. Um, so I when they decided to come out with Halo Infinite, again, I can argue and say that that was a trilogy that was interrupted because you had Halo 4, Halo 5. We didn't get Halo 6, but we got kinda like a filler game, which is Halo Infinite. And on the Gears side, that would be what's coming out soon, which is, Gears E-Day. But where they differ is that E-Day is a prequel, right? But Halo Infinite was supposed to be this sandbox open world, and I had a feeling that was something that was just not gonna work. Like, you're gonna put Halo in an open world sandbox type game, like this is like The Witcher or some shit like that, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is like a Baldur's Gate, like, we're just gonna have a big, wide open world, like, I don't know what they were thinking, you know? I just didn't see that working. I just didn't see it, and it and Halo Infinite, it didn't work. Um, Now I have heard that the game, um, Halo Infinite has improved, but I do think that 343 or whatever they're called now, I think they rebranded them. I forgot what they call themselves, but they've moved on. Um, so I know that they're developing Halo 6 right now, and, I do know I remember, I watched a Microsoft video of them showing the team that's making, Halo 6, and it did not inspire me at all with any sort of confidence. I was like, "Okay, this shit is gonna flop." Oh, man, like, it you ask you and I don't mean you, and I just mean in general, like, you have to wonder, when will these people just when will they realize that this just does not work, man? I imagine a time where maybe at some point, these developers will just get back to the formula that made these games popular. That's just what I hope. Get back to what got you to the dance, so to speak. You know, what was the winning formula of Gears of Go back to that. What was the winning formula of Halo? To that. I I just it's just very frustrating, um, when you see games that you wanna play, you wanna invest your time in, and you just know good and damn well it is just filled with a lot of DEI bullshit, and, it's like this shit even with me understanding from top top to bottom how this whole process works, it still annoys me because I can't stand this shit. I just want to play a game where I'm not being preached to. I'm not fucking having to choose goddamn pronouns. I don't wanna see mental illness top surgery scars. I don't want to fucking see, transsexual bullets. I don't want to see tranny operatives in fucking Call of Duty. I'm tired of this shit. It does not work. It does not work, it does not sell. People are tired of this shit. You're tired of it. It just doesn't work. So, I don't know what I'm gonna rant about now for the 3 of you that's still here or probably listening in the background or doing your shopping or walking on a treadmill or whatever this is, but I just, I'm not very optimistic for a lot of the gaming franchises that's set to drop. Like this whole, the Grand Theft Auto. I think I think that game, and this is gonna be a very hot take, I don't think that game is going to meet a lot of people's expectations. I think people are gonna run out and buy it because it's Grand Theft Auto, and people have been waiting for it for a long time. But for some reason, I have a feeling that game I mean, it's gonna sell, but I don't think it's going to match the expectations that people have set for it. I just don't think so. And then if I look at the game, The Witcher 4, that's a very popular game, very popular franchise, and I understand the controversy there is you have Siri, which, you know, I kinda knew that they were going to make her into a Witcher, but the Witcher 4 trailer, to my understanding, was ratio on YouTube and other, like, media outlets and such, and, I think it's just really people just want to use, Geralt. I think that's just really what it comes down to. Personally speaking, I didn't have a problem with Siri. I really didn't have a problem with her. When I was using her in The Witcher 3, I thought she was pretty cool. But she wasn't really a witcher. She had her own abilities. She had her own powers. In fact, there was a scene, when in the game, when you finally find her and Geralt and her are having a conversation, and she's talking about how she went to different dimensions, and really, she says she traveled different worlds, and she was detailing a world, like a modern day world. Now imagine if The Witcher 4 with Siri. Imagine if the game was like a Chrono Trigger style game where you have Siri using her elder blood or whatever, I think that's what it's called, and she's going through different worlds. Kinda remind me how, that PlayStation game, Ratchet& and Clank, where you would go through a portal and you'd appear in a different world. I would imagine if now maybe that might be ambitious. Think if they did something like that, with Siri, I think that would have been much better, in my opinion. Because it's sort of like, all right, well, if you're using Siri, she's a witcher, then why not just bring back Geralt? But I think people would argue and say, well, Geralt, the DLC character, DLC content, which I did not play, apparently he retired. So, but it's gonna be interesting for me to see how that game is gonna go. I think that game has a much better chance of succeeding, but, time will tell, honestly. But, I don't know, so let me just kinda get off track. Since I'm doing this whole live thing and it's like 2 hours and 22 minutes here, I sometimes wonder, at this point in time now I've watched other people do streaming before, and they'll, like, show something on the screen, whatever, whatever, but they'll probably ask, like, "Okay, chat, what do you think?" Or, "Blah, blah, blah." Because there's only 2 people here for now until the 2 people leave out, um, I'm kinda like, I'm open to talk about whatever anybody wants to talk about, but in the past, this being the 4th live stream, I think I've only had 1 guy in the chat ask me to talk about something specific. Everybody else kinda just, I don't know, maybe they just got me in the background or something. But, I think that one particular guy, he asked me my political, where I stand politically, and, actually, there was another guy, I forgot his name escapes me right now. There's another guy that asked me about, tech, about my thoughts on tech, and, I was thinking about just talking about that, making a completely separate stream for that, because there's a whole lot that I can talk about with tech. I'd much rather like to see if I can get more people into the stream for that, 'cause I would love to hear the questions and the feedback and their thoughts in the chat. Um, but this stream was just me wanting to kinda talk about where I feel the current landscape of gaming is and talk about my little humble beginnings of being a gamer and just kind of, just kinda rant, you know, whatever, and just kinda do that, you know? Uh, but at least I had let me see, I had what, 6 comments? So that's not bad, right? 2 people. No, 3 people actually, and, so that's pretty cool. For right now, it's, what is it, 5:24 my time in New York. So I don't know, I'm probably gonna, I don't know, probably play something online pretty soon, see what the other YouTubers got going on. But I think just to kinda since this video is gonna be on YouTube pretty soon after I end it, I'll probably, do what I did with the last stream, and I'll probably just go in and make chapters because, the last stream I did, right now, I believe I had about 250 or so viewers, which for me, a channel my size, that's great for me. You know, I'm not somebody that's gonna be expecting 1,000 views every video. I'm not thinking that. But there is something I did wanna speak on, and it's probably, you know, everybody's gonna leave at this point, but it's just YouTube in general. And I think this would be a great, maybe I can kinda make a chapter of this, and I can take this part home and upload it. But it's the frustration of just being a content creator. I think I touched on it earlier in the stream, but it's like I'm very confident when it comes to being on camera. Very confident, just engaging. I don't like to look and act like I'm a psycho or look at one thing like this. I like to look around. I have no problem presenting, just being alive and or as alive as I can be. And there are many people that, they can't do that. Being on camera is a weakness for them. That's where you have these stupid channels. No, let me not say stupid channels. But channels that, you have it's like some sort of an animation character, or it's like some sort of weird looking, it's not a humanoid character, and it's like an avatar. And like for instance, you have this channel called It's a Gundam. You know, it's not even them. It's just it's them talking, more than likely reading from a script, but because they're not on camera. So if I'm not on camera, I could easily just read, "Yeah, so next week I'm gonna be talking about this and I'm talking about that." You would never know. And so I do believe a lot of these channels do read from the script when they have like that, those characters that are not really like they're like animation characters, like Doctor Disaster One, the channel Hypnotic, the channel It's a Gundam. Those channels, it's not really them. They're using like an avatar, So I don't know if maybe it's because they're too shy to get on camera. Maybe maybe they want to read from a script, and because when you, the viewer, are watching those guys, and they're all very successful YouTube channels. Don't get me wrong, I'm subscribed to each of them, but it's just something that I noticed that I'm looking at Doctor Disaster One video, and it's like, okay, space pirates, blah blah blah, and he's going through his whole gimmick. Like, am I to really believe that he is not reading the script? I mean, I highly doubt that. I highly doubt that he is reading all of this, that he's doing all this off the top of his head like I am. I highly doubt it, 1000%. Um, and that's just something I noticed. I'm like, "Man, is that what I need to do? Do I need to make some kind of silly character to put to animate on screen and then off screen I'm reading like this big script?" Maybe. I don't know. But again, those are channels that are very successful in their own right. I think Hypnotic, Doctor Disaster One, It's a Gundam, very popular channels, sub to each and every one of them. But it's just something I noticed. But then again, I do also use them as an example for people who may want to start a YouTube channel, but they're too shy to be on camera. Like doing this right here, me looking at you, right? Me talking, ranting, talking about whatever. People can't do that. It's hard for them to do that. And sometimes they need a script. They need to read from something, okay, like for instance, so let's say if I'm reading this, right? Like I have this, right? So this would be my script, right? I'm just a hypothetical. So if I have a character on screen, or if I just have a whole bunch of B-roll playing, you can't see me as the viewer reading the Super NES was released in North America in August 23rd, 1991, with its launch titles. So If I'm going through all of that, you can get so good that you don't realize that the person is running a script. And again, I'm not saying anything is wrong with it, but I do believe 100% when you are doing a video like I'm doing right now, and you don't have a script, you don't have an outline, but you are able to communicate your marks and speak your points, I feel that is much more skilled and requires a higher level of ability than anybody reading from a script, in my opinion. That might be a hot take. That might cause me, well, I don't think so. I don't think anybody's gonna really care about what I think. I'm a very tiny YouTuber. I'm pretty sure these other guys don't even know who the hell they don't even know I even exist. But I do pride myself on that. I do pride myself on being able to relay the news of something happening in the gaming world to my subscribers without the use of having to rely on a script. The only thing I'm reading is probably an article from that Park Place, which every damn gaming YouTuber uses. When I started doing this shit, I was like, "What is this Park Place?" And I'm like, "Oh, okay, this is where they're getting all the information from." Outside of that, given my own take, is off the top of my head based on my own experiences. So imagine my frustration of editing a video for like almost an hour and a half to 2 hours, almost a 10 to 20-minute video long, a 10 to 20-minute long video, and speak not like what I'm doing here, like, I'm just speak, but I'm speaking about, things that's happening in the gaming industry, right? Like, let's say if, the game director of Dragon Age: the Veilguard, Corinne Bush, the trainee that ended up leaving BioWare. I'm reporting on that, knowing that at that time, that was current news. So imagine my frustration. I'm putting all of this work in, and when I hit upload, I barely, if I'm lucky, I may or may not even get 100 views. If I'm lucky, I might only get 40. But yet and still, I can look at these other channels, and I'm like, how in the hell are these people getting 10,000, 20,000, 100,000 views? Ah, wait a second. Am I missing something? I think I am. And I did this on, TikTok, for instance. There was something I was speaking about on TikTok. I reported, I think I reported on the news. It was political, it was different, but I reported how Trump was gonna freeze federal assets. I don't know if you followed the news at all, but he froze federal assets, and people were concerned, um, that would mean, like, welfare and Medicaid and stuff with that like that would be affected. So I recorded a video, I uploaded the video to YouTube, and I uploaded basically the same video to TikTok. And what do you know? In 1 hour, that video got 4 views on YouTube, and on TikTok, the same hour, I had 356 views on TikTok. Now, I don't know, maybe that's just the way it goes, but it does get frustrating when you are a creator and whatever your niche is, whether you're talking about guns, whether you're talking about sports, video games, personal fitness, whatever it is that you're talking about, it's like it does get annoying when you know that you're speaking about something that is in the now, that is current news, but it's like barely getting anything, and that's when I realized, you know what? What I think is going on is these larger channels, and this is just something that I thought about on my own. I think if I look at a channel like I referenced him before, Doctor Disaster, right? This channel, I believe he has over 100,000 subscribers. I feel when you get to a certain point in your YouTube journey, especially when you're monetized, right? When you get that monetization, you get that 1,000 subscribers, the 4,000 hours of watch time, which is a ridiculous grind. But once you get to that point and, you know, you get like a certain amount of subscribers, right? Let's say you may have, I don't know, 1,100 subscribers. But naturally, when you upload a video, it doesn't mean that every single subscriber is going to go and watch your video. It's unrealistic to expect that. But if you have a few hundred diehards, like the ones that your ride or dies, the ones that watch you do it a stream, right? It might be the two people that's probably still here listening to me yap on. Those people that they watch your live streams, they watch most of your videos every time you upload that certain core audience. So basically, out of like an 1,100 subscribers, maybe like 500 people show up regardless. Like you can always count on 500 people checking you out. What ends up happening and what I've noticed is a lot of these YouTubers. I have this program called TubeBuddy. TubeBuddy, yeah, yeah, TubeBuddy, and I can see the tags of other YouTube creators, and I can see what they're putting for, like, I wanna see, like, their description. Yeah, you can see their description. I can see their tag, and I can see their SEO rating, the search engine optimization rating. I can see all of that using TubeBuddy. I notice a lot of the larger channels, their SEO is, like, sometimes in the 20s, sometimes 0. Like, they don't put much effort into tagging their video or anything. Like, hell, I've seen videos that they don't even have even much of a description. Their description is probably, like, things that they're selling, their memberships or maybe they'll have, like, 1 or 2 sentences as a description, and that's it. But yet and still, those same videos are getting, like, thousands of views every single time they upload. So that's when I realized, okay, when I contrast this to my own videos that did very well, the one thing that I saw was I had a lot of comments in those videos and, a decent amount of likes. So I have a feeling that, again, getting back to that analogy, if there's 1,100 subscribers and 500 of them are like your ride or dies, if you are not putting much of description, or anything, those 500 ride or dies, those day 0, those day 1, they will probably watch just about anything you upload, and they'll probably comment as well. So with that, you have 500-ish people watching every video you make. And out of the 500, most of them are leaving comments, leaving likes. So what ends up happening, the YouTube algorithm is basically sending that video out to more and more and more people. And that's how the video is gaining more and more momentum and getting in front of more people to get more eyeball, potentially more subscribers. And this is where I realized that a lot of these larger channels, people like myself, we're not playing the same game. We can't play by the same rules. Tags, the description, all that shit still matters because even though to my knowledge, I have about what 103 subscribers. It was 304, but some people unsubscribed, whatever. I don't know what the hell people unsubscribe or whatever. But, um but yeah, um but yeah, Randy Savage said that, he says he can't stand the car. So you know what I'm talking about. It's like, I mean, I'm not trying to hate. I want like something I know. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, different skill set, lean more into yeah, like I am definitely not I'm no Mr. Beast when it comes to edit. Well, that's not Mr. Beast because he probably has a whole fucking team that does that shit. And that's another thing. A lot of these larger channels, they have entire teams. They got teams that create thumbnails for them. Them crazy ass, outlandish thumbnails. Um, you know, I don't have Adobe Premiere Pro. I don't have After Effects. I don't have Photoshop. And even if I did, I'm not that well versed in I use I use the free version. I use Canva, free version. I do what I can. I know for a fact that my own if you even look at the thumbnail of this video, like, I just do what I can. I know it's not the best, but, it is a little bit annoying, but I just do what I can, and I think as a content creator, I have to keep reminding myself of that, and it's something that I tell to other people in some of my videos, but it's almost like I'm kind of telling it to myself because it really does weigh on you when you make a video that is, like I said before, you put your heart and soul into it. You add that this shit takes time when you're putting, you have to see, oh, okay, at this point, I'm talking about PlayStation. At this point, I'm talking about Microsoft. And to find that little point, make your and then you may add a transition, a little cool little transition. Then you gotta type that time stamp into your description. All of that shit takes time. All that add the B-roll. Do you want like there's so many little things that take so much time. It's so tedious, time consuming. And then when you finally hit upload and you barely are cracking like 30 views, and you're like, wait a second. Now, a lot of times it wouldn't bother me if it's just me just talking about just whatever. I'm just rambling like I am right now. But if I'm talking about like a hot topic like Dragon Age of Veilguard, what's happening with BioWare, or what was going on with Assassin's Creed Shadows. Let's say if there's like a new update for Tekken 8, I'll probably cover that. And you're doing these sort of videos, and you're going through the same sources that everybody else is going through, whether it's that Park Place, in the comics, uh, Insider Gaming, all the same articles every single gaming YouTuber go to all go through the same shit. It's the same article, literally. Okay, they screen record it, they read it off the fucking screen, and then I've seen them change up where I've seen some guys they'll have the article on screen, but it's just only the headline, and they're just talking about it. Have some other that scroll down to it and they read the whole thing, then they discuss it. Or they read a few parts and then they talk about it and they do the same shit. And I see these videos 10,000, 20,000, 50,000. Like, and I watch these guys and yeah, I am gonna be on some hating shit. But if I'm really being objective, many of these guys, many of these guys could not. I fucking mean that. I 1000. I look at some of these guys, they're dry as white bread. They have no personality. They're they're boring, and Not all of them, but some of them I'm like, "Man, this is corny as fuck." But it is what it is, and it's just me being the competitor that I am, but it's like, it's just frustrating when you know that you're putting out, work that is in the current, and it's like, okay, you're just not getting that same or even similar level of engagement. So, all right, I can look at it and say, well, maybe it's because of the whole thumbnail, the title, because I know when you're a smaller channel that it matters a lot because when you get to a point when you're so huge and you already have this pretty sizable audience that definitely shows up, that comments on your videos, that basically is absorbing everything that you're putting out. At that point, you don't really need to focus on tags anymore because you already have an audience that's going to show up for you. So I think when it comes to this whole YouTube thing, it really the hard part is just getting that initial group of people that hear what you have to say, show up to the live streams, and go on there. And I think that's the part that takes the longest when you're trying to be successful on YouTube, in my opinion. That's what I think it really comes down to. Um, because it is frustrating, to just do X, Y, and Z. You're barely getting anything. So, but that's where I made this one video several months ago, and I said, why should you post videos if nobody's watching? Or it was something like that I said. And that video did very well, actually. It did well for me. I think I had about over 300 comments for it, and I mean, excuse me, 300 views, and it was a very well video. I think it related to a lot of people, and it was good. But yeah, man. Yeah, with these types of scenarios where I'm just kind of talking about whatever, at this point, if I was a much larger channel and there was more people in the stream chat, they'd probably be people, talking amongst themselves. They'll probably ask me, "Hey, what do you think about such and such?" Or "What did you think about, I don't know, the basketball game or the football game or what's gonna happen? What do you think about" like, see, right now, I think the Royal Rumble is tomorrow for WWE. It'll be something instead of me just rambling and rambling. Now, of course, I probably would also be playing a video game, right? But because I'm here in the living room, my Xbox is in the bedroom, and also, unfortunately, Xbox, for whatever reason, uh, cannot stream directly to YouTube. I have to stream to Twitch, which is nothing wrong with that, but, you know, building up my Twitch is not building up my YouTube. Of course, yeah, I know you can take your Twitch streams and then I can just re-upload them to YouTube, but from a live standpoint, it's not really the same. But I do wanna get into streaming my gaming. I know that there's quite a few people that are interested in watching me stream technique, based on my videos I've done off of Raven, particular card but it's just, set up the way I have it. My Xbox is so my bed is, like, say, right here by this wall. My Xbox is further away toward the window on the opposite side of my room, and my webcam would be situated in a way where it's like my whole room would be captured because, the camera would be too far away from me, and, and then there's a microphone. Well, I do have a headset, so I guess that works. Still trying to figure out how I wanna do it, what game would I really want to stream, considering that I only have 4 followers on my Twitch, but, um, you know, my Twitch really was I don't really put much on it, so even if I were to go live, I don't even know if those 4 followers would even check me out. I'd probably have to, like, be more active on the platform, and that's where I think, they have this thing on Twitch. I don't know when it started. It's this thing just chatting, where you're just kind of doing what I'm doing here, just running my mouth, and I see a lot of people do it. So that might be a way for me to break in, maybe, appeal to some people, and maybe they'll follow me on Twitch, and then when I go live doing my gaming thing, those people can show up, and then I feel like once it kinda picks up some speed, or some steam, I'll start adding my Twitch, handle, in my YouTube, and maybe some of the subscribers here on YouTube, will just go and maybe sub or follow me on Twitch or whatever. So, you know, I'm still trying to, there's a lot that I'm and, I wanna try to do this, say full time. I have a lot of big plans for this. Giving myself another 4 years, for me to do this. Hopefully it'll take me that long to get successful, but giving myself 4 years, and just after that, I'm just give it up. The reason why it's 4 years is because my current living situation right now affords me to do that, right? So, that's why I say 4 years, because I'm in a position where I can do this. From a time standpoint, I can do this a lot. So I'm just kind of debating on how I want to go about it, and because can I is that's not an I can't do it. It's just a matter of how I want to do it, and maybe there's people out there that feel the same way, you know. But yeah, I've been talking about what is it, 3 hours about Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo. So at this point, I'm open for suggestions. Unless people watch the stream once I upload, and you'll see everything that was, I rambled on, and after the fact. But when it comes to Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, I know those companies back in my hand. When it comes to DEI and ESG, again, I know that backwards. I know exactly why there's so many gay elements in video game shows and movies. So it's like, I just have all this information. I just know, again, hopefully one day I'll get to be a much larger channel, to where I can start sharing a lot of my knowledge, insight, to influence things to change. Because a lot of the larger YouTubers, they do have a lot of power, whether they realize it or not, to influence certain things to change. And I'm hoping one day maybe I'll get to that point. I don't know if it'll happen. Hell, at this point, I'm really just focused on trying to get monetized here. Um, I'm hoping that like, may happen this year. I hope, so that in 2026 I can just focus on building the brand more, getting more financial assets, so much things, getting monetized here, becoming a Twitch partner or affiliate, uh, going the Amazon affiliate route, uh, doing the channel membership stuff, like really just trying to create value for people that, want to choose to support me. And because I do feel 100% I do have a lot to offer when it comes to the gaming space, especially based on my experience and just the way I see things. And I do feel that there are people out there that see things similar to me, and I'm not one. I don't need an echo chamber. I don't need people who just, if you disagree, I'm fine with that. I don't mind people disagreeing with me. In fact, I love debate. I love comments. Anybody that's been commenting on my videos, they'll tell you that, look, 99% of the time, I get back to every one of my comments. And because, I'm not Mr. Beast. I don't have 50 trillion subscribers where I can't physically get to everybody. I got what, 300 something, and so, and that not all 300 people subscribers gonna watch every one of my videos. So I'll be lucky if there's a handful of people, which is cool, but naturally, as someone who wants to grow with intent, I definitely want and need more. And so it's a grind, and if you are a creator yourself, you definitely know what it feels like because it can get frustrating at times, and you feel like you've done your best work and it just, it doesn't translate. So, you just do what you can, keep pushing, and go on from there. I have seen many people do a lot of these live streams, and I am surprised at how much watch time you can get doing this. But the one thing I don't know, I really don't know this, is all right. So I know uh, when there's a section on YouTube for podcasts. Now, personally, with the way I can talk and run my mouth for hours, I feel I could probably do a podcast in my opinion. But what I don't know is, do podcasts on YouTube, do they contribute to your watch hours and to your to stuff like that? I don't know. Every single thing I try to do online to find an answer to that question, I cannot find a definitive official answer for that. I know live streams do it. I know regular long form videos. I know your shorts, they only count, I think, likes, I think, or views. But podcasts, I don't know. I don't know if if creators on YouTube get the watch hours and the likes. Like, I don't know how that works for podcasts. Otherwise, I would seriously consider doing YouTube podcasts where I can just do what I'm doing here, and it might be a little bit more acceptable by the viewer because they understand, oh, I'm just watching a podcast. He's going to ramble on anyway. Like if I were to do this in one of my regular videos, I highly doubt people would still watch. I mean, maybe, but I doubt it because I don't have that credibility. I'm not as known as some of the bigger channels. So I don't have that type of authority yet. I'm well aware of that. I know where I'm at. You know what I'm saying? So I'm trying to get to that point, and it's tough. It's tough. So maybe I might do a podcast. I might do something and just kind of see for myself if it contributes to my watch time and the views or whatever. Because I'm curious. Yeah, I'm mad curious right now about that because years ago, I've always ever known podcasts to just be something you would listen to while you're like working out or walking your dog or walking the treadmill or some shit like that. Like, once I started seeing like things that look like videos, but they're like classified as like podcasts, and I'm like, what? This is a podcast? So I was a little bit confused about that. So I don't know. I'll have to check that out and see what's what. Let me see what's going on the phone real quick. Yeah, let's see. But yeah, man. Who's actually? It shows two people. Well, now, can I even see who's in the? No, it doesn't even show you who's the actual two people. It's I have no idea. But I will say I do appreciate. Um, I sometimes think that maybe people probably have me like background. Maybe that's probably what it is. I can't imagine anybody really paying attention to what I'm saying at this point because I'm just rambling on. But I think I think what I can speak to what I want to talk about in the future. sure. I definitely want to talk about the next upcoming update for Tekken 8 when that finally drops. I did have an idea. I wanted to make this video. I'm a little bit late to the party on it now, but there's this demo that came out. It was a game. It was called The Last Berserker. I'm a little bit late on that one, but I can still probably stream it because I haven't even played it. I downloaded it. I think it's a pretty good game from what I hear. Um, but I think I might mess with that. There's a couple other independent games I wanted to play. They're like side scrollers, but they kind of got like digitized graphics. That I think they're really, really good. And just kind of speak more about, Assassin's Creed and so on and so forth and whatnot. But yeah, I don't know, man. I'm just kind of looking at the time. It's like 3 hours at this point. I don't know how much longer I'm gonna keep doing this before I run out of water. My damn mouth is getting dry. But I will say that one of the things I'm a little bit, I wouldn't say nervous, but I'm just not that confident yet, is showing screen sharing on this app. Like, it's easy to do it on OBS, and I think in my last stream, I was, like, screwing around with it, and I think people in the chat were telling me, uh, the whole screen was black. Like, it just went completely black. I guess I wasn't doing it right, and then I kinda thought I figured it out, but, yeah, it I think, that somebody suggested to me in the chat that I have to look at my own stream on the phone so I can keep up with the chat while I'm sharing the screen. So that's kind of like, I wanna get better at, um, yeah, so where I'm talking about, X, Y, and Z, I can kinda pull it up or just kinda watch something in the background, whatever, just comment on the latest news and all that stuff, but, I don't know. I think when I, think the idea of trying to put chapters into this whole 3-hour, stream right now, I don't know, it's like 6:03, PM here in New York, so I don't know. Maybe I'll get to that. I'll do that later. So I think I'm about to call it quits, probably take a nap. I'm out early this morning, did like a decent workout, ran around Prospect Park. I still train like a boxer, even though I'm like 44,000 old, but I still maintain my training. Got to keep in shape. You know, that was something I was preaching heavy on my channel early on, since I am a personal trainer. But thinking about again, I mentioned this, I'll probably secondary channel just focus on fitness. Uh, but I don't know, you know. So I guess I'll chime out. So hopefully, I say everybody. Hopefully, the two people, whoever is still here, has a great. Thanks for tuning in, and guess I'll be back with another topic to ramble. Anyway,